Erin Magill, you served as production designer for the limited series Dead Ringers, which is inspired, of course, by the David Cronenberg film of the same name. Now, where would you say your production design pays homage to Cronenberg, and where would you say it deviates?
Yes, of course, it's a very iconic film, not only for Jeremy Irons' performance, but for, I think, a lot of the visuals. The red, I think, being of huge importance. Obviously, our brilliant costume designer, Carrie Langerman, incorporated that with the scrubs. And therefore, I think the biggest thing I paid homage to, I guess I would say, would be a bit of the darkness that exists and a bit of the Italian postmodern style that was existing in the twins' apartment. I thought it really lent itself well still for who these twin sisters are, being these very godlike doctors, very sterile, very cold, lots of reflective materials that we could use with that. So that was a bit of our inspiration from the original, for sure. Yes. And then deviation, obviously, sorry. The deviation was obviously, I think the biggest thing was going to be, of course, through Alice Birch's brilliant scripts and that female lens that not only she had written, but then Rachel would be performing. And I think the biggest difference, again, was kind of knowing this idea that the body horror was actually just showing birth itself. It wasn't actually showing mutilation. It was really going to be showing this process of what birth is and the mess of that, along with the mess of kind of these very codependent sisters. And so a lot of what I was trying to do was really give, I think, this believable canvas background for that kind of mess that was going to be evolving on screen, whether it was a sterile hospital or their home or the very believable kind of generational wealth we saw with the financiers they were trying to get money from.
And when they finally opened their birthing center, it's one of the major locations of the series, and certainly one of the most visually arresting. It sort of walks this fine line between our world and almost futuristic and otherworldly in certain places. What did you hope to evoke with those spaces?
Yeah, a huge part of that came from, again, where they started, and we meet them as, they are supposed to be the best of the best. They've worked their way up, kind of the American dream. They're working, we took inspiration from Mount Sinai, Lenox Hill, all the top New York hospitals, and what those OBGYN and wings looked like for that initial Westcott Memorial Hospital that they're in. And so starting there in a place that was very, this kind of bureaucratic maze structure that was definitely constructed by men, less concerned actually with the process of birth and more about getting bodies in to make some money off of them. And so it was a lot of what we had discovered really existed there, and kind of then going for the complete opposite and leaning into, yes, what we are seeing in some of these, I would say birthing centers and more bespoke places that are being built today in this very kind of more private and definitely more almost spa and resort like, for good or bad, I would say. And then again, because of the nature of, I think, our story and where we really go, it was, amping that up a little stylistically about, 5-10% more to help with the drama and the nature of what happens in the story as it goes on, and especially in those environments.
And the show also has this twisted sense of humor at times. Did you hope to bring that humor into any of the designs, any of that kind of eeriness and humor?
Yeah, I would say that, again, most of it was, there was so much brilliant humor in the writing itself and obviously in the performances. So it was, if anything, it was going to be definitely more subtle. I mean, I think, of course, there's so much in the Parker estate, and in a design aspect, of course, is that very large portrait behind Rebecca during that pivotal dinner scene that was, I would say, the most on the nose kind of joke from the set dressing. But because of that, I think we did try with the Parker estate, especially, and the Parkers, as kind of this idea of this, mega generational wealth, kind of Sackler-esque family that I think, what could that wealth look like? And the idea really to us and kind of who she was is she collects wives, she collects causes. So she was an art collector. So to a degree, we tried to, especially with that initial painting inspiration from Alice's script, try to lean into, I think, a lot of, while very valuable art pieces that we were lucky enough to rent, kind of ones that I think lent a little more comical to me of kind of the absurdity of just, again, the absurdness of the wealth that they really have and what's going on and the control that they have kind of in this medical world.
And in that Parker estate, there is that, incredible dinner table scene. And there are other, important scenes that take place over dinners and with
Yes.
lots of characters convening. What are the challenges for a production designer in scenes where you have so many characters and angles to cover?
Yeah, I mean, well, specifically the Parker estate, again, I could read, it could be a published short story, the dinner scene alone. It was like, I think it might've been 12, 15 pages. And it was hysterical. And so because of that, we definitely, and we had found a location for the rest of the estate, and we knew that, there was just production limits that we would need to build that dining room. And so that's definitely something that, and the architecture of the location itself was this historical, wonderful place out on Long Island. And, there was nothing to kind of connect. It made sense to me to kind of go underground, also knowing some of the antics that get into the game later when through tunnels and whatnot. And that I kind of like this idea of an underground cave, but skylight, but, wine cellar. Maybe it's a bit, of, very high end kind of bomb protective shelter, whatever, just this idea of going underground that would then allow Jody and Sean and Alice to, have complete control and enough space for the actors too, so that we could capture that very hilarious dinner scene.
And what was your collaboration like with the cinematographers? Because you're creating these sets and locations, and then of course, have to decide how to light them, how to capture them on camera.
Yeah, it was, I was very much working with Jody and then Laura as well. And, I think the lighting is something from the original that I think we all consciously and subconsciously were definitely going to take was, it is rather dark. And I think that lends itself a bit to this idea of New York and the city that never sleeps, as well as this idea of the twins being doctors and this idea that, we never quite know what time it is because they have such insane hours and a lot of the binges and psychological stuff that is going on. And so when talking about that, again, the lighting for me was, we wanted a lot of what I was doing to be grounded in a certain level of reality, but building in elements for obviously Jody and Laura to be able to tweak and play with, such as the kind of Terrell inspired light above the mantle in Beverly's bedroom. That was a bit of this serene, this thing that was supposed to almost calm her down in her Zen-like bedroom state, but that they could tweak the lighting as things went on. And and just going from, I think, the hospital where we really leaned into this kind of dark, older, again, bureaucratic maze, and then into the newer hospital that was supposed to have more space and light. But as things began to kind of, I think, progress or digress as the twins kind of their relationship unraveled, we had built in a lot of lighting that allowed Laura to have a lot of fun, I think, with what was going on with the twins and their unraveling.
Was there a design or a build from the season that stands out to you as maybe your favorite that you're especially proud of?
I think their apartment, probably, because just I think it was this, while it might not be as flashy as some of the, I'd say the birthing center, I think the apartment to me was this, I really like to design something that, while it might appear like it's just a very high-end apartment on the Upper West Side, there was definitely a psychological reason for every single, the reason why we placed Elliot's bedroom that would be more towards the alley, and Beverly's bedroom we built more with the light, and the idea of them sharing this Jill and Jill bathroom, and all the details that really went into all the shapes and textures, that was really just trying to be emblematic of these very complicated sisters and women. So that was really the one that meant a lot to me.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on the show, and thank you so much for talking with me about it today. We'll talk to you a bit later for our group session.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.